Right.
Michael.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
Hot, hot, hot.
So, are you muted? Dan, let's just make sure.
Not yet.
Oh. There you go. You should be muted now.
Of course.
Right. Now, can you hear me? Yeah. Right. So, remember to stay hot. You may have noticed, but remember to drink. Yeah. Although we're doing very gentle exercise and it's all very relaxed and we're sitting down, you will still dehydrate if you're not careful. So do take sips of water. Get this right. That's better. Remember that it said that if you feel thirsty, you're probably already dehydrated. So be careful and be sensible and do drink. So rub your hands together. And starting on your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. The other side. Part of your chest. Belly. And your legs. Settle back and let yourself sink into the chair. Remember that one of the things that we're looking for is to create a bit of space within the body for movement. And that movement includes things like your blood circulating, which is part of how you cool down. So your postures can help to release some of the heat that builds up in your body. Postures and the movements can help with that. But it's important to remember that when we move, we need a sense of how the posture should feel so that when we move, we're not creating a tightening, a tension within the body. So this first part of this class, of any class that I do, one of the features, one of the important things is not just the physical aspect of it, but this paying attention, listening to the body, reminding yourself of these feelings and reminding yourself that it's possible to keep a sense of close attention, close listening to what's going on in your body while you're doing other things. There's a benefit too for the mind in that it encourages this quietening. Well, you may fall asleep, it does happen, but it's not the sleepiness that we're looking for. It's rather a quiet alertness. Imagine you're just very relaxed, sitting by the sea, looking out over the waves and noticing the details of the waves. So you're alert to the movement, alert to what's going on in your body, but not sort of weighed down by that heaviness in your mind that we can get with the heat. Come to the upright position. in this sort of heat, our body swells up, our joints can swell up, our muscles can swell up, and that can restrict our movement. And as always, we don't want to strain against that. That's why, for instance, people with respiratory problems can often suffer in heat like this, because in fact, your body's swelling up with the heat and it's putting pressure on your lungs and the chest. And we're aiming to release that pressure very gently. So turn in your head. And then your shoulders. Remember trying to be aware of what's happening in your chest and your upper back, so that it's not just a straining in your arms. There isn't a straining in your arms at all, I should say. But rather being the whole of your upper part of your body, ribs upwards. Gently moving your elbows. And then going forwards. And then arms. Hanging down. The whole of your arm rotating. So again, this is a rotation in your shoulder joints. So once again, ribs, chest, upper back, all part of the movement. Feel as though your chest is just unfolding, opening out a little bit, and then folding in along that centre line where the breastbone is. And then around. And back the other way. Transferring your weight from predominantly in your hips, buttocks, tilt forwards, your legs filling up with the weight, and just try and notice if you're tightening in your knees or any of the muscles of the legs, and see if you can just release that tightening so that as you go forwards, feeling is of your feet being pushed into the floor. Now turn a little. In the direction. And around. And back the other way. The upright position. Pull one knee up, step forward, put the heel down, lower the toes, press gently into the floor as though you're just pushing into soft sand and pull back. And the other side. Hands down by your sides. Sip of water. And our usual starting point, fisherman cast the net. So one of the reasons I like to start with this particular exercise in the chair-based movement is because it really encapsulates a great deal of what we do in Tai Chi, how we do things in Tai Chi. It's a very simple exercise. It's very easy to get wrong. And the most significant mistake that we make is when we move our arms instead of our body. You want your shoulders to feel completely relaxed and the feeling of your arms hanging from those shoulders, quite heavy, so that as you lean forwards, tilt forwards, your arms have to come with you. And that's all you need to do. Let me show you from the side. Keep going. I'll show you from the side. This is the movement that I'm making. It's my pelvis rocking forwards and backwards. And this is what my arms are doing. You'll see here, arm hanging from my shoulder. Here, arm hanging from my shoulder. Now what will happen is two things. One is a certain momentum will build up, like a pendulum swinging, so your arms will start to go a little bit further without you having to make any more effort. And then when we take our memory back to those first two exercises, well, second and third exercise, when we were turning the arms, if you remember, rolling the elbows round and back, we found that our rib cage, our upper back were part of the movement, so we're contributing to the movement. And the same thing is happening there. It's almost like if I go forwards, my hands are back, and then my chest folds in, and that brings my arms forwards. That was grossly exaggerated again. I'll show you from the side. It's like I'm doing this, and then this. You see how that moves my arms, except it's a much more subtle movement than that. And then you'll start to realize that there's things happening in your lower back as well, and so on and so forth. All of those movements are quite subtle. So that clear mind that I talked about at the beginning, our thoughts settling and the stillness, the clarity of the mind, is an essential part of this. We make use of that. We can now see what's going on in the body and work with it. So if you're sitting here, your arms swinging, wondering what you're going to have for lunch, you're probably doing the movement wrong. So there's no turning in the center of the body, but other than that, all the elements that we bring together for all of the exercises are here in this one very simple movement. So now, leaving your arms out in front, do the same thing, but you'll notice it brings your hands and your arms up. So you're rolling a ball in, or as though you've got a ball in front of you, and your arms are just draped over. So as you come back, unless the ball suddenly dissolves, which hopefully it won't do, your hands have to come over. So you're not lifting your arms here. You're pulling them over. No strain, and in many ways, no apparent effort in your shoulders. And then drawing your arms out. Again, your chest open and closes. It's a good one if you are struggling with your breathing in this hotter weather. This is a good one because it helps to just gently release the air, the ribs, down into your belly. Remember, in Tai Chi, we breathe as though our lungs were down in our belly, and as we come back here, that whole area expands out. As though the ball that I was talking about before really is actually in your belly and expands out, pushing your arms out. And if you want to try doing the movement with the breathing, don't do this every time, but every now and then, just try taking a breath in here. See how it feels. If it doesn't feel comfortable, don't worry. Just leave the breath, let the body breathe naturally. One more time. Pushing away, it's the body moving forwards that creates the forwards movement. And all your arms have to do is curve up and down. And then pull your hands into hollow fists, not tight. Be aware of the space inside your fingers. Palm your hand and hold, crush the space. And that should leave your arms free to rotate. If you hold the fingers tight, you'll find that your shoulders tighten up. And push forwards, open your fingers and keep turning your hands out. And then you come back, and like earlier when we were just winding the hands around the post, and that brings your hands up. Finding the path of least resistance for each movement. If you keep your hands up here and kind of stiffen your fingers, and it'll be a horrible movement. And if you're paying attention to your body, you'll realize that. But take your hands out, let them drop down, and this movement becomes nice and smooth. So find the right pathway for the movement within your body. Like water draining down a hill and flowing through the cracks in the rock. And bringing your hands in and pushing up. Don't think that means that it's not a strong exercise, because you're using your body differently and you will feel the physical effect of it. And you will develop more movement and stronger movement as a result. It's just that the way we approach that in Tai Chi is different to a kind of normal experience. One more time. And then hands out to your sides. Wild goose. Heart in the clouds. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more time. And then changing. Two-way push. So by now, if you've been paying attention to the previous exercises, you'll hopefully be more aware of what's happening within the body, the small changes, back and belly, your upper back and chest. And that becomes just one movement, an expansion and contraction, like a balloon expanding and contracting inside your body. And it's that movement that's moving your arms, or part at least. There's other things as well, but that's the main movement. So this time, still with that main movement, and then turn just a little bit in your hips. If you turn your hips, your shoulders will move, and if you turn your shoulders move, so will your hands. So you change the direction of the arms by moving in your hips. And then face the front and push out. And then put out. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then push your hands and grasping tiger's ears. Almost the reverse of the previous one. Nice and smooth. If it's uncomfortable to have your hands this high, then take them down to a position that is lower, more smooth in your shoulders. You'll gradually learn again, if you're paying attention to what's happening within the body, you'll gradually learn how to get that bigger movement. But if you focus too much on your arms and your hands, you will lose that sense of what's going on in the rest of your body and get further from your goal. So switch sides. This is one of the great ironies of learning Tai Chi, that we quite often find ourselves trying quite hard to learn a movement, and because we're not trying in the right way, we get further from where we want to be. It can be very frustrating, but it's also a learning process. We learn that the details that we're given, the small details of what's happening in feet and hips, are the ones that we should be focusing on. So change. So here the real detail is that little bit of a tilt in your pelvis. And then the feeling of movement in your belly, in the small of your back, the lower part of your back, up into the middle of your body, and into your ribs, your upper back, into your shoulders, elbows, wrists, and finally into your hands. One more time. and so when we get to more complex exercises, the things that we've just been doing could be thought of as being like the pieces of a jigsaw. And if you've ever tried to put a jigsaw together and you've got everything and then you've kind of got one piece missing, you've blown it. So we need all the pieces, we need all the correct pieces to put the movement together. So we're going to do one of the more complicated exercises. And the things to think about as we build this up, and you'll see how we build it up, is weight transfer. Is your weight back in your hips? Or is it more in your feet? Is it more on one side of your body than another? You could be back in your left hip, back in your right hip, forwards in your right foot, forwards in your left foot, in the middle but back, in the middle but front, or in the middle, full stop. When we want to move our arms, we rely on the rest of the body, in particular when we turn. Turning the whole of the upper body means that our arms have to go with us. And then there's this rhythm, this expansion and contraction. Those are some of the main pieces in the movements that we're building. Oh, one more thing. When we take a step, it's this. Look at my shoulders. I'm not doing this. I'm trying to keep my upper body still. I've got that feeling of equilibrium, of alignment. And if I practice this exercise enough, I know how to move my leg without losing that. All of those are going to be features as we move on. Now, we're going to start with fisherman castanet. So go back into this, letting your arms swing from your body. The first movement we're going to do is called Wind Blows the Willows. So what we want to do first of all is to move the weight into one leg. I'm going to move into my left leg, and I come back to the middle. And then I turn my body and I move into the right leg. If you watch the pattern on my t-shirt, see where it's facing now? I turn the other way and I go forward and I end up in this leg. Now we're going to change this slightly. We're going to go forwards, but now I'm going to turn as though I'm going to try to push into something with that shoulder. So I come back, I go into the other leg, and I'm trying to turn, push into something with that shoulder. I'm exaggerating all of these movements, by the way. Take note of where I'm turning. And what you'll find is, if I do this from the side, can you see what my arm is doing? When I go forwards into this leg, I turn, and this hand goes back, and this hand goes forwards. That wasn't me trying to put my hand in that position. In fact, it's quite annoying, because this right hand of mine is getting stopped by the chair, and that feels quite difficult. It's not difficult to get the hand to move. And then we think of that expansion and contraction. But it expands, and that pushes the arms out and contracts. This is an exercise called Wind Blows the Willows. And the image of the willow tree is a lovely one. Willow trees have this very deep root, and renowned for it, renowned for the suppleness and the strength of their wood. Forwards into one foot, you turn, expand, and then you come back to the middle. It's a lovely movement, this one. And we keep doing this. And now we're going to change to a movement called Dragonfly Skims the Water. And there's really only one thing that we need to do. So you go forwards and the opposite leg. So my weight's in this leg, and I just lift the heel up. So the knee comes up and down. I go back, I go the other way, I lift the knee up, heel comes up and down. So I'm now moving my leg at the same time. And then if I'm feeling ambitious, I lift the knee and I raise the foot. I come back to the middle. I go forwards, I turn, I lift the knee, I raise the foot. So if this isn't comfortable for you, go back to just lifting the knee and the heel off the ground, leave the toes down. Likewise, with the next movement, if it proves not to be comfortable, stay with this one, if you've got this far, because now I'm going to lift and rotate. So it's like I'm kicking a ball with the inside of my foot. On the other side, this is dragonfly skims the water. The wrong question is, what do the arms do? The correct question is, have I got all the pieces of jigsaw? One little tip I will give you is that you turn towards the foot that's lifted. Don't let your hands come up too high. Some of you got your hands coming right up above your shoulders. That tells me instantly that you're paying too much attention to your arms. My arms get nowhere near that height, barely above shoulder height. Do that one more time. Excellent, well done. Good. Now rub your hands together again. Face. Over your head and neck. Onto one shoulder. Side. Part of your chest. Belly. And finally, your legs. Have a little drink before you get up. And then standing. So drinking water will help you to keep your blood pressure down, will help to cool you down. And if you, in weather like this particularly, if you feel a bit kind of dizzy sometimes, drinking water will help with that because it helps the blood circulation. And I'm very specific here, drinking water. By all means, have a beer, have a cup of tea, gin and tonic, lemonade or whatever, so long as you're drinking water as well. It's water that does it, not any of these other things. So, you know, just taking a few sips of water regularly through the day is really important. In weather like this, you will be losing that water, and when your body dries up, that tiredness that can set in is often due to dehydration. So, no, sorry, wrong exercise. Remember that feeling of your body being in line, and I know you've all done this enough, hopefully, to have some sense of what it feels like. You may just find you've still got that alertness, that clarity in your mind that you just sort of slip into this posture nice and easy. And then sinking down, letting your center of gravity drop and pushing up and away from it. Your body expanding and contracting. once again, by starting with very familiar, like simple movements, we train ourselves in an awareness of those pieces of the jigsaw so that they become hardwired into how we move. I've been doing Tai Chi since 1983. I've been doing some of these movements since that year, and I'm still practicing them. Most days, actually. So now change to the wild goose. And then heart in the clouds. Good. Now 1 foot forwards. So as much as you can without straining, when you do this, try and face completely forwards. So not like this, but like this. But don't twist your knees up, don't twist your back up. So if you're a little bit out, don't worry. But get used to the feeling of moving directly forwards. Feel your weight going into the back foot, that leg absorbing the weight and then pushing you back, going into the front foot, and the leg absorbing the weight, pushing back. As familiar a movement to us as sort of brushing your hair out your eyes would be. Now, move your weight back, go forwards, in, as though you're pushing with this front shoulder, like you're pushing into a door, and back, and then turn the opposite way. So you turn towards the foot. Very carefully. As always, rest when you need to. Take a sip of water every now and then. Change over. So it really helps if this stance is correct. So just watch for a moment. There I've got quite a narrow stance. If I go forwards and push, I fall over. So remember, this stance that we call the bow stance, the width of the step should be the width of your hip. If you're doing this, or stepping too long or too short, or whatever, then it's going to be very, very difficult to do the next couple of movements. If you're uncertain about what that means, Let me just give you an example. So here, for instance, you see these sticks. You see where the sticks are. Let's move this one back just a little bit. So what I want to be able to do, you see, that's where my feet are. And when I take a step, it's going to be to there. Not there, not there, but to there. Oops, no, not there, to there. That's it, that's exactly right. Yeah. So get some string, get some chalk, something you can, a couple of sticks, something you can lay on the floor, yeah, and practice being able to step into this stance. Now, particularly for, so I should be on the other side, particularly for those of you interested in the Tai Chi forms. So first of all, facing forwards, pushing forwards and backwards. So that stance work is another piece of the jigsaw, another element to what we do that we want to be able to get right without having to put too much effort into it. When we're doing something like a complicated movement, when we're doing one of the Tai Chi forms. So if you want to be able to do something like that, you put the effort into getting this stance right before you try those particular movements. I know some of you are interested in the forms. I would say that 99% of the time, or maybe 95% of the time, when we make a mistake in the form, the source of the mistake is somewhere in the legs and the feet. So now we're facing forwards, and then turning, pushing with the shoulder, go back, turn the opposite way. Again, if you look at the pattern on my shirt, you'll see the turning in my body. For once, it's not particularly exaggerated, actually. Now, we'll do fisherman cast the net and wind blows the willows, as we just did in the chair. I'm going to do it with my back to you because I think it would be easier for you to follow the movement. So have your left foot in front, and if you decided to sit down, that's absolutely fine. Do feel free to sit down, but you can still follow the movement from the chair. And we're going to start with fisherman cast the net. Same thing as before. You see, my body's pulling my arms through. I'm not going up here. Look at where my arms are finishing the movement each time. Into your front foot, let your arms swing through. Into your back foot, let your arms swing. And this time, as you go forwards, as your arms swing through, you turn, and that swings your arms out. Go into your back foot, turn to the front, and as you settle into the front foot, turn. This is the standing version of Wind Blows the Willows. Nice, smooth, fluid movement, a lovely image to go with the movement. and bring your feet back. Excellent. So let's try and put that together on the opposite side. First of all, facing forwards. Then we go forwards, and as you settle forwards, your arms swing past. Go back. So remember, you could be doing this in the chair with your weight going forwards into both feet. If you're standing, it's from foot to foot. If you're seated, it's from hips to feet. But it's the same principle. And you go forward as though you're pushing with the shoulder, and turn, sink into the front foot, sink back, and turn. Wind blows the willows. And see if you can just pick up on that inner rhythm, your body expanding and contracting. Another piece of the jigsaw. And when we can really understand, get a feeling for those different elements, we find that they blend together quite naturally. Wind blows the willows. And then shake it. Great, go back to your chairs. I used the image of a jigsaw. Another idea, perhaps, to think about is that Tai Chi is a little bit like cooking a meal. Because everybody, when we start doing Tai Chi, wants to flow. We see the flow, we want that lovely sense of the movement, and so on and so forth. And that's like looking at a well-cooked meal and thinking, oh, I want some of that, and then just going into your kitchen and expecting it to be there. It's not going to happen. When we cook a meal, we plan the meal perhaps, and we know we've bought the ingredients, and we prepare the ingredients, chop the vegetables up, whatever. Yeah, and then eventually what you do is you put them in a pan or the oven or something like that, and you just leave them to cook. And so in the same way, we prepare all the different elements in Tai Chi, and we allow them to blend quite naturally. It sounds almost as though it's the wrong way to do it. You know, it also sounds quite boring, but it's not. It's really quite fascinating what's going on in our bodies. We can get very absorbed with the slightest movements. And those slight movements are hugely important for our well-being. They're the basis of all our movements, they're the basis of our health. Tiny little changes in the body can end up having a massive effect. And it also sounds like a very slow process. Well, I suppose it is a slow process, but actually it's a faster way to achieve what you're trying to do, which is the flow of the movement, than any other way that I know of. Tai Chi is a Chinese art, and there's an old saying from China, which is that more is less and less is more. The more we try to do, the less we actually achieve. So we have to try and get a sense for that as well. And so it's good to think about those basic elements, and then just to investigate how we can begin to put them together into these flowing movements that we want to be able to do. So we'll look again at Wind Blows the Willows, and once again I will put something up on YouTube with a bit more detail for you to copy. But for now, come back to the sit-in, that nice sense of space, that openness in the body. Let your hands drop to your sides and embrace tiger, return to mountain. One more time. And rest. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, remember, a little drop of water. Good way of drinking water is to take a few sips every now and then, because that way you just top up water in.
Yeah.
So look after yourself in the hot weather, of course, and do practice a little bit. I'll see you all soon. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye all.
Bye all. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
You.
Bye.